You're probably wondering right off the bat what 12 inches has to do with your garden. 12 inches is what you guys are going to use for square foot gardening. About 20 years ago, it pains me to say that, but yeah, about 20 years ago when I was figuring it out, I rented a house downtown here where I'm from, and it just had a really small backyard, next to nothing. And right around that time there was a book getting really big called Square Foot Gardening Method. It was Mel Bartholomew. I was much younger than I am today. We had just had my first kid. I didn't have a lot of money, and I sure didn't have a lot of room. Everywhere I've ever lived, I want a garden. Doesn't matter to me if it's on a balcony or a patio. Even when I was in the military, I was one of the only ones that had some pots sitting outside the barracks. So you can imagine how that went. I just always like to grow things. So I found the square foot method, and if you haven't looked into it at all, it's about to change your life. If you've seen it, maybe I'll be able to show you something different, but I understand if you've already studied and know exactly what it is. The basics behind square foot gardening, and definitely if you haven't read the book, read the book. But you're gonna take a garden bed like this, and you're just gonna divide it up into 12 by 12 squares. We'll grab some string or some rope, any kind of divider you've got, you can divide it up. The originator of it, Mel, he actually used 1 by strips and made little templates that he set over top. If you have limited space, there is no better method in my mind to have a garden that can actually produce a lot and actually feed you instead of just a little bit, just being able to grow 1 tomato plant on, in the backyard in a pot, or, whatever the case may be. Square foot gardening, like this bed here, is 3 foot by 4 foot. Bought at one of the big box stores. I've actually got 3 of them. They went on this huge sale and I picked them up. I was gonna delegate this bed to something else, as we saw in my seed planting video, but I think what would work best is to set these beds up in a square foot garden and let everybody follow it all year long. Now the basis, or basics, however you want to look at it, behind square foot gardening is you can grow more in a smaller space. It really worked for me that first year, and I was meticulous. It's so funny thinking back to how I had a job where I was driving a truck. So I was in all different cities in western Colorado, all the way up into Aspen and down into Telluride. Okay, Mel's mix, the magic mix for soil for this garden, was 1/3 vermiculite, 1/3 peat moss, and 1/3 compost. I had to study it to a T. I had to find vermiculite, and if you haven't tried, vermiculite is a little harder to find most of the time than perlite, and you can substitute in perlite. You can actually go through and make your own mixes. My mix that I showed you in the seed starting video would work just as well. So don't be afraid to throw potting mixes in there. But Mel's magic mix for this method is 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 vermiculite, compost, peat moss. It won't hurt anything to substitute in coco coir, perlite, what kind of compost you use. Go ahead and play with it. You're not going to be disappointed. But the basis is, in one of these raised beds in a backyard, I think what was said is you could produce enough food for 1 meal per week for 1 person or something like that. Like I said, I just did it 20 years ago. I was in a pinch and I did 2 beds. I just screwed together 2x4s in this little tiny backyard that I used to have, and I grew a ton of food. One of the biggest things I can remember, and I know it sounds crazy, is the tiny little carrots that I got out of it. I got a ton of these tiny little carrots and they tasted great. It's just a really good memory for me. As I progressed, of course, I got away from that. And then I got to thinking, I guess if I had to think about it, it's one of the best memories I have with gardening. I got a ton of food out of it. I was unbelievably proud. As the years progress on, you get bigger and you do things, and I really never went back to it, and I don't know why. But lately I've thought about it a lot more, especially when I meet and get to talk to people who leave messages on this page and my Facebook page and my TikTok page, all that stuff. I've talked to a bunch of people that they do live downtown and they don't have a big area. So today we're going to show you the answer. Square foot gardening is going to change the game. I actually have 3 of these beds. I am zone 7A, so we are very early. I'm not going to be able to get in depth and show you a bunch of plants going in here. But if you're in zone 7A or any similar zone, it's not too late to plant anything yet. Now's the time you want to set up that garden and get it ready, just like what I showed you on the onion video. Get the soil prepared and that kind of stuff. So today I'm going to show you how to set up a square foot garden in this tiny, look at this, in this tiny little bed, 3 foot by 4 foot. I'm even going to try it, if you can't tell from the video, it's got slant walls on the side. I'm even going to try it that way. I'll just put my plants that have a shallower root system on the outsides, and if I do any, say a pepper plant or a tomato plant, which I've never tried to do in a square foot garden, but I know it can be done, I'll put those in the middle to the deepest point of the pan underneath. So I think what we'll do is we'll use these 2 beds out here, and I want to set one up for a salsa bed, and I want to set one up for more of like a stir fry or salad. You know what? Let's do one setup for a salad bed, one setup for a stir fry salsa bed. How about that? We'll go through, I'll show you how to mark off your squares, get your soil prepped and ready, and then we'll go inside and I'll show you what seeds that I've got started for this garden, and I'll just take you on the journey all season long. So you can probably tell easy enough that these beds have sat over the winter. This bed here had shishito peppers in it. I've actually still got dried shishitos in there. Start by getting everything out. I pulled all the roots and the plants out before the winter time, and I just let this sit with my pine shavings on top. So just run through, let's clean out the bed, leave the pine shavings right where they are. We're just going to mix those guys in. That's going to add more organic soil or more organic material to my soil. And as I've told you, so funny story, if you haven't watched my very beginning videos, the seeds I bought were supposed to be Ancho Poblano. Nope, that would be shishito. We are in Colorado, zone 7A, and look at how light and airy this soil is. So we're just going to mix this stuff up, and then let's grab our compost. I'm not going to use a whole lot of peat moss in this one, mostly compost and a bag of perlite because these gardens are already established. Okay, a lot of times in raised beds, I don't do more peat moss. You've probably seen in other videos that I do. I just dump a whole bag of compost on here. But to stick with the tradition of Mel Bartholomew and the way he came up with this, even though I'm not going to measure it out exact, you guys know what the formula is. I'm going to go ahead and mix it in here on top. And remember, anytime you can use peat moss, coco coir, it just adds that fluffiness, that soft material to your garden. It's going to help those roots really grow down in that soil. There we go. We're going to do 1/4 bag. Hit it with perlite. Never forget your compost. And if you have worm castings, you can put those in there too. They help everything. Now we're just going to mix it all in. And of course, I'm going to hit it with blood meal and bone meal. Give it time to start breaking that down in the soil and making this just a nice, rich soil after last year. Well, I just found out that these beds are 45 inches, not 48. So that's going to change up things just a little bit. And let's check the other direction. So I got robbed. Width-wise, actually, I'm going to take the 30-inch measurement just because of the way it's slanted. So we're going to have to reconfigure my whole idea here. Okay, I wasn't actually ripped off. I just bought these beds. I thought they were 3 foot, 3 foot by 4 foot. That's okay though, we'll just adjust a little bit. So here's what I think I'm gonna do. We're gonna cheat just a little bit. Now I know 12 by 12 is already small, but we're gonna go 11. So that'll bring a whole new interesting concept into this. So 11 by 11 it is. We're gonna roll with it and see what happens. Now, find you some old rope, twine, anything you can get your hands on. I found this in a junk pile getting ready to go to the dump. It was off of an old carport. Get yourself a drill, of course your measuring tape, and some screws. Then you're just going to measure down. So instead of 12, I'm going to go 11, 22, 33, and just install your screw right on the side. Okay, if we get our screw started at 11 here, and then we just wrap this rope. Now my rope's a little bit thick. If you're using string, it'll probably come out a little bit better. Then run that screw in and it'll hold on to that rope for you. Do that down one side. For you, it would probably be 12, 24, 36. Go to the other side, do the same thing. Then we'll work widthwise, and we'll be right back. Always have your Leatherman. Okay, I guess to divvy this up right, we're going to have to do 10 and 20. So, yet again, now these are going to be 11 by 10. You just want a grid laid out. So even though these are going to be just a tad small, we're going to make it work. And here's what we're looking for. Just a nice even grid all the way along. Once starts are ready and season's right, each one of these squares is going to be something different. Now we have to go over spacing, and we'll run inside and I'll do it on the board too. I'll put the square foot garden chart up, the one that I found best anyway online. If it says one plant in a 12 by 12 square, of course that's going to be right in the center. You can do two however you'd like. When you get up to like 3 would be the triangle. I don't know if there's any that are 3. 4, of course, is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, the same way that I do my 4-inch pots. 6, same thing, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 16, where you can do 1, 2, 3, 4. That's probably the one I'm going to avoid in this bed just because I went a little bit shorter. I think I'll stick with 9 and just do 3, 3, and 3 when we get to things like carrots or radishes or beets or anything like that. Now that we got the rope on, you can actually see, let me get you down here, you can see how low your soil level is under this rope. So I'm going to grab some more compost, fill this to the top. And that's all there is to it. Get your nice even grids, get your soil mixed up, get it in here, get it ready. That way, zone 7A, where I'm at, I still have about a month. I'll start putting lettuce in here before that, but we'll do updates along the way. Now, you can set this up with some 2x4s on the ground, a raised bed. You can build a raised bed. Fence pickets are a really cheap way to do that. But try and get yourself a 2-foot or a 3-foot by 4-foot space together. Mix up your soil, get your rope run, and let's try and do this together. Follow along with me through the season. Let's see how this turns out. I'll get the other bed ready. You don't have to sit around and watch that one. And we'll see you back here with updates. Let's bring you back to my wonderful whiteboard. Okay, a big thing to know about square foot gardening is how many of each thing that you can put in each square. It's been around a long time. The book for square foot gardening that he wrote was a #1 bestseller. This is no secret. I'm just telling you how much fun I had doing it and why I think it's going to be such a great deal, or such a big deal for you and your gardening. And this year, me and my gardening too. Okay, let's just do some squares here. Imagine that's 12 by 12. So you've got your bigger things, your tomatoes, your peppers, cabbage, let's say broccoli. Okay, I know there's going to be a lot more things out there. There's a whole bunch of info online that you can get. Just Google square foot gardening map and you're going to see this. So that's going to be one right in the center. Think about it like the bigger the plant, the more room it needs. So your large plants, which I haven't tried, actually I think I tried broccoli 20 years ago, but I may not have tried any one of those for one plant. I'm honestly not sure. Then you go to the little smaller plant and you're going to go to 4 where you put them in the corners, kind of like what I did in my 4-inch pots for my seed starting video. And you're going to have stuff like lettuce. You could do kale this way if you were doing cut and come again, but kale can get pretty big, so be careful with that. You could probably do Swiss chard that way. Your marigolds, like if you're doing flowers, they would fall into this, that kind of thing. Then you've got 9. So going down to a smaller plant, 9. You could do beans and beets and things like that way. And plenty of other things that are out there. Just like I said, just Google it, you'll get the list. Then you got your really little stuff, and that's going to be your 16 block. 4, 8, 12, 16. And that's going to be like your radishes, and carrots. Like I said earlier, I did do carrots and I loved them. So this is going to be your basics on your plant spacing. Lots of ideas out there. Now let's take a look at my two beds. I'll draw them up here and then you guys give me some ideas of how you think they should be planted. So I've got two beds. And these aren't perfect. So you can see this way, I can get 24 different crops in those two beds that were bought from a big box store. And if anything, this should show you that anyone can do this. Those beds honestly don't take up that much space. Even with the backyard I had 20 years ago that I did square foot gardening, I could accommodate these two beds. Back then I just didn't have the money to be buying raised beds. But I could have built them. If I would have thought about it back then, I could have pulled my resources. So I think we need to try a tomato and a pepper just to see what they do this year. And because the center row is going to be my deepest row, because those beds are actually angled this way and then flat. So my outer stuff, I think, needs to be my lettuce, my spinach, kale, stuff like that. Maybe we're definitely going to do some spring onions in here, or some green onions. So these are just the basics behind square foot gardening. We're going to go ahead and do carrots in here because to me this is the best way ever to do carrots. Now another way you can use these beds, and I'm not sure, I haven't done it this way, but I did get it from another YouTube channel. So this wasn't my idea. I did get it from, it was Kevin from Epic Gardening. You can use it as the perfect rotation for lettuce, kale, spinach, any of the salad greens like that. And you could actually start like week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and be able to rotate back. I thought that was a great idea. So you could use it for crop rotation. You could use it for, definitely for confusing bugs and garden pests and that kind of thing, because around this outside edge you could mix in your marigolds and onions and garlic if you wanted to really get the scents going, and then they're not going to touch your interior plants. It's just unbelievably versatile. It's fun. It's easy. It truly makes gardening fun. So if you're one of them that doesn't think you have the room for any kind of decent garden, this shows you you can. That's 12 out of one bed, 12 different crops that you can grow all year. Raised beds, so you're not down on your hands and knees. You mix your own soil. Pretty inexpensive when you do it the way that I showed you. And year after year, you can have these plants. I'm just trying to show you that anybody can garden. Anybody can get a lot of crops out of a very small space. I love this method. Again, I don't know why. I really don't know why I haven't done it again. My youngest son is 20, and I was talking to him today. He was out here helping me. Yeah, it was the year he was born that I did it. It was 20 years ago. I told you how hard it was for me to get vermiculite. I called all around. I was driving truck back then, and it was 2.5 hours away up in Carbondale, or by Carbondale, on the way up to Vail, that actually had the vermiculite. And so many people, when I called and asked about vermiculite, they said just use perlite, it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. And back then, I was dead set on I wasn't going to do it any different than what Mel from the book said to do it. So when I was up there, I bought 2 big old things of vermiculite. Yes, I could have used perlite just the same.